It almost took a major life event of pain and suffering, like disease or something that was physically wrong with me, to create change. I kept remembering that I can create this change without going through that suffering. Why would I not do that?
Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build $1 billion business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. You know, I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. Please share and enjoy. Trevor, we're back. This is round 3. I thought it was 2.
Yes.
3, man.
I know. We've known each other for a while.
It's
this is not our first rodeo.
10 years, I think we said?
Something like that. Something like that, man.
We go back.
Flown by.
It really has. A lot more to go, man. We're co-creating some great stuff together. And with this episode, I'm excited to share some of the changes that you've gone through and are actively doing right now since the last episode, which I think was still 2.5 years ago or so.
Yeah, at least. I was actually, I don't know. I was going to mention this to you. I think now's the right time, but you probably didn't check your Facebook feed before we got on here, but I just shared. This is what my love-hate relationship with Facebook, man. The memories. I love the memories when they pop up. And you know what happened 4 years ago today?
What's that?
Joe Fier, not Fier, Fier.
That's right.
Co-hosted a networking event at Mission Brewery in San Diego. And I was there in the crowd. And I'm looking at this right now. And I was just thinking, man, like that was only 4 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday. And then at the same time, it feels like a lifetime ago for how much growth and pain there's been in that time since then.
Tell me about it, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I will check it out after this because it does feel like a lifetime ago. And we did a handful of those, man. And it's so cool to bring a bunch of people together, which I know you're great at as well and are doing more of. And yeah, I definitely
into it.
Yeah, and I've discounted those groups in the past. Like I had Chris Krimitsos on the podcast recently, and he's created Podfest and brings together thousands of people every year and multiple times. And he's like, bro, don't discount that. That was an amazing event. That was a ton of people, and it doesn't even matter if it's a ton. It's like, it's bringing the memories and people together to co-create, and who knows where that goes? Because I know a lot of people met each other. Things were.
Totally. It fuses relationships. There's something about an in-person event. And I know one of the things we'll talk about is as you mentioned, like I'm hosting events. Well, that wasn't the case for many, many years. It was last June that we had our first Extremely Conscious Man retreat in Canada. And we did that one just on a whim of, that sounds like fun. We should invite some people. And then kind of just threw ourselves into event planning and everything. But the experience of being around other people and actually leaning into deep, meaningful conversations, doing extreme adventures together, man, those people are friends for life now. We're all in touch constantly. We're continuing to lean into all of these things that we say that we want in our lives, but don't necessarily act on. But when you got a group of people that have a shared experience, it just connects you forever. You
really
can't
does.
help but feel that.
Yeah. And I've noticed that lately is when we surround ourselves and share these things with the people that love us, that are connected with us or understand us maybe on a deeper level, I just feel like there's just more more good stuff will be created from that. And we don't know how, but it's like this kind of, it's like a compounded return, dividends of our efforts together and being open. And that's where like you've been a big proponent of the new direction of this show, Hustle and Flow Chart, with the new iteration of finding our enough, or however, still don't know if that's the perfect word for it. And I don't know if there is, but it's whatever that means. And that's bringing you on here. It's like a perfect time to share your story and how that fits with you too.
The name of your podcast, I feel, is perfectly positioned even too, just naturally, because when you guys first started this, I remember that the hustle was still real for all of us. And we weren't ashamed of it. We were actually kind of proud of the fact that like, Yeah, we grind here. We're entrepreneurs. We are digital marketers. We're constantly reinventing ourselves. And then ultimately the flow chart part was like, how do we integrate this to be just like flow like, so it doesn't feel stressful? But I can't speak for you, but I know for me, like think about 4 years ago, I was all hustle, very little flow.
Yes,
very
definitely.
little flow.
Yeah. I call myself the flow sometimes. I'm like, that's not totally true. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it seems like that's come full circle now. That's, I think maybe we're just, both of us are paying attention more to the flow side, which has a level of uncomfortability about it too, because that's not how we were programmed for the last 10, 15, even 20 years. We were programmed that if you want to create a different life where you don't have to work for the man or put in the hours and get paid for them, that you got to go grind. And now we're challenging that belief and saying, no, we don't. We get to, if we choose to grind still, we can, but it doesn't need to be our driver. We can still create everything that we want in our lives without having to do the hustle in the way that we used to.
Was there a point that or you feel like there was a shift in that mindset for you?
Yeah, it was breakdown, man. It has to come through pain.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say it has to, because, Dispenza even talks about this in a lot of his videos. People have probably seen this where, we can create change in our lives in a state of pain and suffering. And a lot of times that's loss or disease or whatever, or we can do it in a state of happiness and joy and bliss and say, no, I'm going to go a different direction and still feel the uncomfortableness of it, but just choose to, not attached to our thoughts that this is who I am and this is how I need to show up and this is how the world works. But rather, what if I challenge those beliefs? And I know for me, it was 2021 essentially in like October, but there was a lot of pieces that kind of led up to it that caused the ultimate breakdown. But it came down to one thing, man. And it was being on Zoom calls like 6-8 hours a day. I think I shared it with you guys even too, when Zoom actually came out and told everybody, hey, you're way over your storage capacity. I'd been getting those messages for like months, if not years. And I thought, okay, it's time to pay attention to this. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was insane, man. Like, I think I had like 5 terabytes of data and like 3,000 meetings in my Zoom recordings. I broke it down. It was 2 hours a day it calculated out to. And knowing that I wasn't on it on the weekend, so it was probably 4 hours a day. In fact, it probably was 5 hours a day at the peak.
Wow.
And that was just too much. Like I was doing this all day. I was hunched over this damn computer. My health was suffering. I was getting chubby. I wasn't inspired, even if I was on conversations that lit me up. I was just so drained by the end of the day that I just knew I couldn't keep going like that. And that was the breakdown ultimately. And there was lots of other pieces that led to it, of course. But yeah, October 2021, still remember it.
That was the point. Yeah. And that's interesting. It's almost like the screen time on our phones. Like, it shows us, you're up 7% this week or you're down. And I used to, look at that and I don't know, it doesn't affect me so much anymore because I feel like my usage of screen time when I'm on there, I know it's going to better use now. At least that's the story I tell myself. I think it's pretty true, but I don't have the guilt over it anymore. But I think what you noticed there was Zoom, especially doing the backwards math and looking at, wow, this is where I put my energy. And I'm sure it was to help a lot of people to support them for whatever it was. Was that on the consulting side of things? Like were you doing the LinkedIn stuff back then as well?
Actually, at that time, I had already sold my business. So when we had our last podcast interview, I still owned a LinkedIn lead generation agency and I was still creating trainings and whatnots. And I ended up selling that business in 2019 and then took on a role within the company that I sold my business to. So I'm a shareholder in the parent company, which is now grown through acquisition. It's called Republics. And I sat in a seat of head of growth, which essentially was just go sell.
Okay.
Which meant, and it also had pieces of the marketing side of things too, because we were all still kind of operating as, hackers, for the lack of a better term, right? It's like, hey, we're really good at this stuff. If we just get out there and we do stuff, we set up some funnels, we drove to landing pages, we booked 20-minute discovery calls, we enrolled into a blueprint, and then that was how we enrolled our clients. So I built all of it and took every single call. It was It was intense. But I did release some stuff, actually, Joe. I remember this in June of 2021 when I finally said, okay, this is my role. I'm going to go do this thing. And from like January to June 2021, I went hard to do what I do best with my skills, And I think I don't remember the exact numbers. It was about a $250,000 month that I had. And It was all reverse engineered based on the actions that I took, which was a lot of just showing up. It was touches, right? It was connect requests. It was follow-ups. It was video messages sent, all of the things that we know works, but at what expense? That was the thing that hit me from June until October that year, where I was thinking, was this worth it?
Yeah.
The numbers are telling me yes, but what have I sacrificed to be able to get that result? And that was where things just crumbled for me. And I didn't know the answer. So I had to go seeking and explore. And that was massively uncomfortable.
Especially doing the math.
Yeah, I didn't exactly, right? Because everything seemed to add up to say, no, stay the course on this. Can you not see that you will meet your financial goals if you stay this course? But I thought to myself, yeah, I don't want to do this no more. And that was one of the biggest kind of aha moments where I started to trust my intuition instead of going, but what are you going to do? And how could that some other reality possibly exist? I started to trust myself and say, okay, it's time to stop and go a completely different direction.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've battled it ever since. Fought it with all my might, resistance everywhere.
Oh, it's going to keep showing up, and I'm sure, but it'll show up maybe in new ways. And that's where I'm curious. Yeah. It's interesting. I love what you're saying here, because I'm a big believer that we have this energy that we can put into anything. And, like I know last year for me going down the crypto side of things, like I was definitely putting a lot of energy out there, and it was away from things that was truly making me feel good. I was, and we talk about this on some calls, Trev, you, me, and Mike, is, a lot of it was cerebral and just going with my brain and feeling, okay, this seems like a smart move. The numbers work out. There's all these reasons why I feel like this is going to help me reach the financial goals. But it was purely that with this new emerging thing, I'm like, there's no passion there for me. And it's actually taking me away from family and all the people that are needing me and wanting me right now. And I wasn't assessing the math in the right way. And when I'm thinking of the math, it's the energy expenditures I was putting on things that truly weren't aligning with what I actually wanted. And brought it all assortment of anxieties and stressors and inflammation. Like I noticed interesting health things. It's not good, not great. And I know you're familiar with some of those things too.
Oh yeah, 100%. Where our attention goes, our energy flows, right? And I bought the crypto course as well, spent $5,000 on it, never opened it. I even paid for the software, man. And I think it was on a 6-month subscription. And by the time I got to the end of it, I thought, should I keep this? Am I going to go back to this? And then immediately thought, no, this is not aligned. And it would have been very easy for me to think, well, you already spent the $5,000. You got to go do something with it. And it was money that both my wife and I invested because, we're a team. So that also came up too. Well, what am I going to say to my wife? I told her that we were going to do this, and now I'm saying that we shouldn't. And it's that's just one kind of micro example of leaning into the uncomfortable. It's not always just jumping in cold water and doing a cold plunge. It's having a challenging conversation where you feel like something's misaligned and you need to pivot, but everything maybe you've done up into that point is telling you can't pivot, but your gut, you know it. You just know it. And just trusting yourself.
Sunk costs, right? Like sunk costs. They can really get to us, man, especially as numbers, financial or entrepreneurs, like watching the metrics and we're like, we got to get a return on this thing. Am I not good enough for this return? Or like, I can't even figure this out. The program's right here in front of me. Like all these things I know of for other courses and things have definitely held me back and put that guilt on things that kept me going the course that probably was taking me away from the thing that I really wanted.
Yeah. The other pattern, now that you bring that up too, I'll say this is something that I recognized in the last 2 years. And it was because I enrolled in for lack of a better term, a spiritual program. It was a 6-week experience. And I was fed with meditations and journaling prompts, and there was a community, and I went kind of in on it. I went further than I had ever gone before in that space, but I didn't fully commit. And I think to myself, how many times did I do that over the last decade? Where in some cases I went in 10%, in others I went 50%, and some I went 90, but I never fully committed to the thing and what it's ultimately created for me. And I think we know the answer. It's okay. You don't go all in on that thing that you invested in. You're hoping for a miracle. And the miracle doesn't just show up in front of you. It requires committed, focused action. And that's been one of the big ahas for me in the last couple of years, was to actually look at myself in the mirror and go, you're not showing up, man. You say you are. You're talking a big game. You're actually even selling that idea of going all in, but you're not doing it. And that's not even easy to say right now, because there's a part of me that feels out of integrity, because truthfully, I was proud of what I had done, but there was a lot of pieces of me that just said, yeah, you're not being the person that you say to everybody that you're committed to being. And that was a tough conversation to have with self and continues to be every single day.
I was going to say it's a continual conversation, and as it should be, because every single day there's some new input, but also there's so much processing happening within us, and brain being one of them. But if we can get into our heart and actually syncing up the two, I mean, for me, and it might sound woo woo and all the spiritual, which maybe, I don't know the labels behind it all, but I know it makes me feel great when I'm syncing up my breath. And there's a lot of science behind this. I'll share this with in the notes. There's a couple of videos that really, like, when you start to see how the chain of reaction goes from thinking all the way down to our body, like physiology, we can actually control a lot of how we show up every single day and control our thinking if we can control how we feel. And that gets back to like really grounding ourselves in breath and paying attention to our heart rate. Like HRV, heart rate variability, is massive. And how that really is, like, you get that in line and synced up, then your brain usually follows along. Not usually, it always does, because that's kind of the chain of events.
Yeah. And we want to understand the science because we're thinking mostly with that monkey intellectual brain most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, show 100%. Me the fact, show me the proof. Well, go do the thing and you'll get it. Well, yeah, but that's not what I mean. Just like, give me the scientific whatever, right? And I think that's another thing that has really awakened the world even too. And specifically for me in the last couple of years is we started to question that science and the proof, and instead started to explore possibilities ourselves even too. Yeah. You and I talked about this yesterday, I believe, with Mike as well. We're fixers. So if something comes up in front of us, we go, all right, it's time to solve a problem here. I know how to do this. You lean in, you grind it out, you find the research. You don't necessarily just start doing, because that seems erratic and, irresponsible. But what if we just started moving? That's one of the things that I was hoping that we would talk about today. Is everybody that's listening to this probably has an idea of that life that they desire, and it's already available to them if they just start moving in that direction. And then not stop themselves around all of the what ifs. Yeah, but what if this happens? What if that client doesn't like it and they stop working with me? What if my wife doesn't want to do that and I want to do this, and it creates turmoil in the family? What if the world implodes and recession hits? And there's so many what ifs that could stop us from everything. But what if you already had the answer? What if you actually trusted yourself? What if you went down a path that said, that's the future that I want? And then we're agile enough to just surrender to whatever shows up for you, because it's either that or something better, not that or the world ends. What if you believe that? And I'm saying this out loud, Joe, because I wouldn't have said this on the last podcast we were on. I would have called myself crazy. No.
Yeah. Well, what's the, because you've taken some big actions, since we've last had you on. Now is, you're in Costa Rica. You've moved your whole family down there, 6 months ago?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was a lot that led to that event. And you obviously told us already about the breaking point in October 2021. I guess, tell me some of the things that you did and some of the experiences you had of battling the what ifs, and also the intention of making a move like that. And then after that, I want to follow up with, I don't expect everyone to go and make that kind of move, but I feel like, as you're saying right here, there are what ifs and these things, these scenarios that we have in our mind of like, if I just did a couple of these things, I could probably, like, there's a result I desire. It might not be Costa Rica. Maybe it is, but talk about this, and we'll talk about some micro ways that people can implement these too.
For sure. I'll give you a condensed version, bringing it back to all the way back to like 2007. So back then I read a book called Unlikely Destinations, which is the Lonely Planet story. It was the couple that started the little travel books back in the day before the internet existed. Imagine that. And they just traveled from the UK all the way down to Australia and documented the whole journey and where they ate and where they traveled to and how they got there and the people and everything. And I remember reading that and thinking, wow, this sounds incredible. And then they had kids and they brought their kids to Everest Base Camp. And I thought, oh yeah, that's the life that I want. But in 2007, that reality was just so far away. I didn't even have a clue how to get to that place. But that was when I really started to lean into entrepreneurship, even though I was already, I had started my first company in 2005. But at that point, I was starting to move towards that and saying, that's the goal. And I remember going to an all-inclusive even too, backing up to 2003 and thinking, why am I leaving here? I'm going back to minus 30 weather back in Canada. This is insane. And then as the years progressed too, I thought to myself, if I was to go and live a life down in beautiful paradise, the way that I operated in that all-inclusive vacation in Mexico, I'd be dead in 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
So those were some of the anchor pieces of, I think I want this life where I'm in a beautiful tropical location and I can surf and I can have an environment where my kids are growing up and there's lots of different languages and culture and exploring and nature. So that became the anchor. And the journey in entrepreneurship just kept bringing me towards what is that ultimately going to look like? And in 2020, like March 2020, which we know what was going on in the world then, we had a trip booked to Costa Rica and we had to cancel it, obviously. And then we had another one booked in December of 2021. And we ended up having to cancel that one too, because of mandates and restrictions for flying and whatnot. So the time that we actually got here was August of 2022. So it was like 8 months after that one.
Yeah.
And we had never been here before. We didn't just completely close our eyes and go there, but we had a friend that was here that was able to help us find property and whatnot that we could move into. But I think the biggest thing was we knew that the world changed in March 2020. And there was two ways of looking at it. Oh my God, the world is shutting down and there's plenty to be fearful of. And what's going to happen next? There's wars happening. There's recessions happening, all of these things. Or again, this Zoom tool, we take for granted, I think, how impactful this technology has been, because I can do what I do currently from anywhere in the world and on good internet connections. So it just became very real that we could make it happen. So we started moving in that direction. And, it was many, many micro steps along the way. And I can tell you this, Joe, that when we landed here, I was preparing to be here, but there was nothing that I could do to fully prepare for landing in a brand new country where the temperature is 90 degrees every day. Very few people speak English. Our kids weren't in school yet, so they were about to start school for the first time. My wife, we kind of joke about the fact that she still hasn't fully landed here in Costa Rica. She's back in Canada right now and coming back. And she just messaged me about that she's ready to finally land in Costa Rica, which is a huge win.
Wow.
That's 6 months after even landing here. And to top all this off, and then I'll stop and let you jump in with some more questions. But when we moved here, the date that we moved here on August 31st, I believe, was the day that we flew out. My wife and I have been co-creating in our own company, like working together, because we both combined have like 40 years experience what we're doing. We lost 2 clients the day we left. 2 clients that said, I don't think we're going to move forward anymore. And we both kind of looked at each other like, what is going on right now? Everything around us feels like it's crumbling. And at the same time, 6 months later, we can go, oh, it was freeing us up to actually go in a more aligned path. Yes, it caused a lot of discomfort and a lot of like anxiety and fear. And there was a lot of rough times in the first few months, but it's always hindsight. Looking back,
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. It was exactly what we needed to face. And
Yeah.
a lot of that comes down to the words on this wall right here, man. Be grateful, be curious, and be brave. That one was be brave. Because when we landed here, there was a lot of reasons to go, we got to get out of here and go back to Canada. This is insane. But we thought, no, this is right.
Man. Yeah. And you bring up the fact that, well, it's interesting how the two clients left you, the day you were leaving. And it's just another reason why you shouldn't go, Trevor and family. And these are all the things that we're all faced with. And whatever, it could be a family thing, someone got sick at home or something, or extended family, which, I mean, who knows how you navigate all this stuff? I mean, because we're always dealing with something, financial, personal, whatever. And
internal, spiritual, made up in our heads, whatever.
Yeah, that's probably most of it, actually. It's probably 80% there. And all these excuses we have. But as you said, be brave. It's always pushing through is worked out for me. I won't say always, but eventually I feel like there's a better path that shows up. But being brave, especially moving to a country with a language that is a different language than Canada, I'm assuming, for where you were. You're still learning some right now, Spanish. So, and with two kids too, there's all these other excuses that we can come up with as parents. And got to do all of our traveling before kids. We can't do that now. We can't move to a whole different part of the continent here. I don't even know if it's the same continent. I think it is, barely.
Central America.
Central. Yeah.
Close.
Man, but I just love the fact that pushing through. So, I mean, I guess on the micro side of things, maybe not thinking of such a massive leap, but for someone listening, are there some micro ways to show up and maybe prepare ourselves to be more brave, to go after something that we really want?
Well, that was part of the journey, to be honest. In December 2021 was when Mike Prince and I started spending a bit more time together. We were neighbors 3 doors down from each other. And he had told me about this horse trough that he had in his backyard, which he filled up with water and jumped in it, cold plunging. And I had heard about this. It was kind of on the fringe of what I was paying attention to. And it's funny, man, because nowadays you see all kinds of memes. People are making fun of it. This is the latest ALS challenge, bucket challenge.
Yep.
Sure. Sounds good. But we started doing that back in November of 2021. And then leading into 2022, we committed to doing it very frequently. We went in the river once a week. We recorded ourselves. I posted a podcast episode where I talked about doing cold plunging 96 times over 160 days.
Woo.
And there was part of it to do with the physical health benefits. Again, the science, the science tells us, they did research, this is actually good for you. But that was a small piece of it. A big part of it was, I don't want to do this, but I know it's good for me. Do it anyways. And where else would that show up in my life? And it just shows up everywhere. It shows up in challenging conversations that my wife and I need to have, like the one we were talking about, making investments and maybe having them not follow through the way that you want, or whatever it is, the family dynamics. We left all of our family behind and we said, come visit us. And we'll come back. But the truth is that that's going to be a different experience for our kids growing up versus my sisters, for example, who are within an hour of where my parents are. And they go to the cabin at the lake every single weekend in the summer. It's a different upbringing. And it's not an easy conversation to have, but it was one that we had to lean in and we had to have empathy and understanding for why other people might not see things the way as we do, but also just to follow our hearts and know that we're on the right path, even if we don't even know where we're going exactly, because that's been another huge part of it, is to just surrender to the idea of trying to attain something or get to a certain destination, and instead really grounding in the journey along the way. So that's a roundabout answer to your question. There's been many things, but it gets summed up by getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And there's no better way to do that than I've found than with the cold. And when I see people making fun of it and saying like, oh yeah, bro, I start my day at 4 a.m. and I go in the cold, I'm thinking, cool. Yeah. I remember when I was that guy too. How about you try it? How about you try it? Yeah. You'll see, it's one of those things that you can't even explain it. You end up walking out and going, whoa, feel different. And then when you layer in breath work and sitting in the silence with your thoughts, imagine that as a high achieving entrepreneur hustler, that you actually slow down and think about nothing. That was like one of the biggest lean intos that I had to do. I've been programmed. I know you can relate to this. I've been programmed like a computer for almost 2 decades now. I'm having to undo what I learned without feeling shame for what brought me to that place, because I'm grateful for all of it. But that's not who I choose to be going forward. I'm 47. I'm going to be surfing with my kids when I'm 70.
Heck yeah.
How do I make that happen? I got to take better care of myself. I got to stop hunching on a computer and wrecking my back. There's a lot of pieces to all of that.
Oh man, there's layers on layers and
layers on layers.
Yeah. And this is where, love that you brought up the cold, because I've done a cold plunge, like a legitimate one, well, like an ice bath one time. And that was like 5 minutes a pop. It was like, did me in, and it felt absolutely phenomenal afterwards. I've done some other plunges and cold showers every day now, thanks to the micro actions that we're collectively doing as a group that we'll talk about shortly here with Mike Prince as well. The extremely conscious men group that we got.
Yes.
But also women, don't be alarmed.
Yes.
It's inclusive and there's other ways. So, but the ice part of things, like it's pretty wild. Like my wife's now doing some cold showers, like albeit just like 10 seconds here and there, 20, and that's okay, because I've noticed the more calm I am under pressure, like in the cold shower, but even that one big plunge, it was like multiple plunges in a day. I just remember, the more I slow down, just like this cold water is like chemically or whatever, scientifically, it's slow. It's like hot water it's boiling, it's fast, it's moving. We don't need to be doing that all the time. And slowing down everything, the breath as well. I've noticed even like opening my eyes and not trying to like almost ignore what's happening in the cold. It's like, no, take it all in and be calm under the storm or whatever the cold we want to label it. And those are the times like I'll tell myself kind of affirmations or mantras just to kind of settle myself into what's happening. And I noticed that just frees my mind for the rest of the day. Doing that in the morning, like it's true. It helps me just get through hard shit, like to push through other hard things throughout the day, not overthink it so much. So I think that's something that we can all do. I think in Canada, you had the blessings of cold rivers around you. I don't really have that here in SoCal.
It's a bit more challenging here. There's no doubt, but there is a cold plunge on in the market on Saturdays. And I went out and bought a deep freeze and started filling it up with ice from the fridge, just throwing it into bags so I could at least do one other one at home too. My mother-in-law brought down a inflatable tub essentially that's just up on the deck here.
Love it.
Yeah, it's just making conscious, committed effort to do these things. And this is just one example, obviously. But, you and I, in what we're doing in the inner circle right now, was even deeper than that. Are we consciously aware of how much sleep we're getting every single day? I know just in the last 24 hours, we've started to create intention and commitment around our evening routines to set ourselves up to win in the morning. And while I've intellectually known that this just makes sense for 4 decades, man, I'm 47.
If
I actually leaned into it and done it and then felt the benefits and went, whoa, I can't go back now. This is it. And this is the work that we're doing right now. It's not to say that anybody doesn't know. Even think of all the people that are laughing and making fun of the ice plunge challenge that's going on right now. Cool. Do it though. Feel the benefits of it. And then tell yourself or look back at yourself when you used to criticize this and think, where else did that show up in your life where you were judging other people for doing things that are good for them, like going to bed early, waking up at 5 a.m. And that's not to say that everybody has to do it. It's just when you've got kids too, when I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old, and I know that really my only time during the day where there's not something going on that's a bit chaotic is 5 to 7 a.m. I'm getting up at 5 a.m. End of story. It wasn't easy. I fought that for a long time. I didn't want to get up at 5. Then I had to look at, well, how late was I going to bed? Was maybe that contributing to it? And it was. I was the same as what we talked about the other day. I was in bed by midnight, sometimes 1 a.m. You can't go to bed at 1 a.m. and get up at 5. It just doesn't work.
No.
So
Sleep. I mean, that's where last night I was proud of myself, still am proud of myself. I almost got 8 hours of sleep. And for
Oh
some people,
yeah.
it feels phenomenal. And yeah, like so this goes, and I want to talk about what you guys are doing, you and Mike, as well, in tandem with some of the things that we're talking about here. So I want to shout out really fast if people want to try some of these actions, these little micro actions that we're kind of talking about here, and I'm going to talk about some more that have affected me. Better Man community, right? On Facebook.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell
You just
tell us.
search it. You should be able to find it. And there's like 3 questions that you would answer just to get into that. And we've got a micro action checklist in there. So it's just a big long list of, pick one. Let's go commit to being better. Let's start with an intention. And then let's actually commit to the actions that are required to create the shifts that we're looking for in life. So that's where you'd find that.
That's awesome, man. And so it's been about a month or so, or it has been a month almost exactly,
Mm-hmm.
that collectively this inner circle, you brought together, about 10 or 12 men who are every single day, we're checking in with ourselves, and we're also following along with what it is, like 10 micro actions or so every single day. And we're looking at these things, and I see that you just popped into the sheet. I have it open as well. I saw your face.
I just opened it.
Yep. And sleep is one of them. There's like some that you gave us that are like, hey, these are like foundational for everyone. Let's be honest. And if you feel like you can function on 4 hours of sleep, I would challenge that. And maybe that's just something you've built into your routine, and for whatever reason, you can't get out of it. Like for me, just like you, Trev, I'm a night owl. I can find excuses to stay up later. I'll go into the hot tub and I could sit in there for hours and think or read or whatever. I feel like I can come up with a lot of excuses like, yeah, my brain, I like my thoughts. I'm like, you know what? I feel a lot better when I sleep. And it goes through managing throughout the day these actions that keep me moving forward in momentum. And it's different things like push-ups. Like that's something where, doing 100 push-ups in a day, spreading it out throughout the day, I've already noticed just like physically everything has been a lot better. Like, like back pain has gone away more so with doing these like just these movement exercises throughout the day. And that allows me to show up better at work. I can focus, I can think clear and not about an aching back or whatever it might be at that time. Walk me through, I guess, some of your thoughts on the power of micro actions and what we can do here.
Yeah. Well, when we had the idea to pull together this inner circle, it came from one foundational thing, which was Mike and I, when we met each other, we didn't even know we were looking for each other. We just knew that in our lives, we were not happy, for lack of a better, term to use. We felt like we should have more, should be doing more, should be acknowledged more, whatever the case might be. And then we had to take hard looks at ourselves and go, were we actually showing up and worthy of what we were trying to attain, and operating from a place of integrity and optimizing our days? And that doesn't mean to try and squeeze as much as possible in, because these 8 actions that we aligned for all of us to be doing in the last month, and we're continuing to do, they all take a little bit of time, not a lot, but I think, in total, it's probably an hour's worth of focused, committed effort in doing breath work, meditation, journaling, reading, cold shower / plunge, get that 6 to 8 hours sleep, do the push-ups / sit-ups, drink 4 liters of water. Those were the foundational ones. And then we each added a couple that we wanted to, just to put some extra unique flavor on it of like, what's most important to us? What are we trying? What kind of ways of being are we trying to implement here? But I think more than anything, what we're doing is we are training ourselves to shift our beliefs and to expand into unlimited possibilities. And what that means from my perspective is, again, we've been programmed to think that if we do this, this, and this, that this will be our output. But what if we did none of that and we actually far exceeded our expectations? And I'll give you a great example. This morning, I had every opportunity to not take the surfboard out, which normally sits right there on the wall, but it's on top of my vehicle right now. Every opportunity, man. I've got a laundry list of things to do to prepare for this retreat that's still 2 months away, but there's a lot of planning to do. And I put the board up there and I made sure that we got the babysitter over here in the morning so I could create the space to get out there and back by 10 a.m. Is that helping me sell more seats for people that will come to the retreat? Yes, I believe that it does. Am I directly doing marketing activities or sales activities to do it? Nope. But there's an energy side of things and an alignment that says, I am living the life that I always desired and not just talking about it. I'm not living in Costa Rica and sitting in front of my computer for 12 hours a day. I start my day around 11 and I'm wrapping it up by 4, usually max, because at 4 o'clock, I'm walking to go get the kids, which is a 6-minute walk away, because I know that one of these things, that was one of the other things on here, was get out into nature for 10 minutes. So even if I am in one of those days where it is pretty intense on the computer, and because I still do my work online, I know at 4 o'clock that I'm taking my shirt off and I'm walking down to the beach, getting the kids, walking back on the beach, and I'm getting out into nature. I'm getting that sunshine. So it's just truly believing that we can expand time. And again, an old version of myself would say, what do you mean expand time? You can't expand time. And I just don't believe that to be true anymore. I know that I can. I just can't explain exactly how it is. It's about showing up in micro ways every single day and seeing the compound effect. And yes, there's physical benefits to it. We obviously know, right? Like you get stronger when you do push-ups, but It's not even that. It's just it's a feeling. It's a feeling that you're more aligned with who you are here to be. And it feels good.
It does. And I believe that we can create our own energy, even if we're feeling off, tired, a little sluggish. I would challenge you to do 10 burpees, 5 push-ups, 10 push-ups, whatever, but get your heart rate up, jog around, whatever gets you going, jumping jacks. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel like at least that you have some energy going, and that's going to help you sustain the next thing and then the next thing. And man, I mean, and I feel like that's how time can be expanded and how we do actually control time. If we let it, we can have time control us as well. And I just finished the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I know I mentioned it to the group.
Yeah. It's on the list.
Yeah. And it's amazing. There's a section in the back called Einstein time and how we got time all wrong. And I'm not going to be able to quote it perfectly. But the point is that we control our energy and how we essentially it's getting into the present and tapping into knowing we're choosing to do this thing and we have the choice to do anything for the most part, and time isn't the thing that dictates that. Obviously, what we commit to, there might be a number of time associated with it. But if we're also, stacking up the surfboard and doing all of these things, we're going to feel a lot more. We're going to feel like we had a massive day. We were able to do this. We got outside. I, walked the dog. We start to integrate these things into, choices more than the have tos. And, I guess it's tough to explain totally, but it's like this expansion comes from doing a lot of the micro stuff, like these micro actions. I feel like that's how we've been expanding time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's celebrating that in the same way that we would celebrate what we've done for 10 years in our businesses, for example. When we sit down and we build the funnel or we put in the dials and do the sales calls or whatever the action looks like, at the end of that, we can go, did I hit my goal? Yes. All right. I feel good about that. Now what we're saying is when I put the kids to bed, is my phone sitting in my office so that I'm completely attentive to them. And if it takes an hour for them to fall asleep, I'm just going to be there and be present with them. And I celebrate that in the same way. Can I sit in the morning for my morning routine is around an hour and a half to 2 hours now, where there's a lot of pieces to it, but can I show up every single morning with a big, long to-do list and kids that need to get ready for school and life tugging at me and financial, obligations, and still sit in silence, for example, for 10 minutes and just breathe and look outside and get some sun in my face and feel that is exactly what I needed right now. And this is feeding me energy. An old version of myself would have said no, would have said that makes no sense. I don't get it. I need to be doing to be worthy. I need to produce to be worthy. This whole conversation is about you are enough. You do have all the answers. You know the direction to go. And when are we going to make the choice? And I'll speak about it from my perspective. I remember when the breakdown happened, I wasn't fat, but I was not in shape. And I could see it in my face looking back on photos, even too, the stress that I was holding and the shitty diet that I had and the extra drinks I was having in the evening. And it almost took a major life event of pain and suffering, like disease or something that was physically wrong with me, to create change. And I kept remembering that I can create this change without going through that suffering. Why would I not do that? And I think a lot of people that are listening to this can maybe resonate, especially if they've been down a similar journey as me and you, because they know that feeling. They know that feeling when they're sitting at their computer and they should get up and go for a walk. They don't, because, oh, when am I going to get that done? Mm-hmm. If you go for that walk, you'll actually be more productive in your work. Trust me.
100%.
I can tell you. And at the same time, people have to go and experience it themselves. And that's uncomfortable, shifting your entire way of being. And that's why I kind of laugh inside when I see a lot of the criticism of, the early risers club or the cold plunging stuff or the breathing or the meditation or whatever, because I think, oh yeah, I remember when I used to operate from that system. Yep. And I couldn't imagine going back to that. Like, that was just a previous life. Grateful for it. Brought me to here, gave me a lot of lessons, but
yeah, man.
And we go forward.
That's how I see it as well. It got me here. It got us here, and there's no shame, nothing I would ever do. I mean, I can't do anything differently, I guess. I'll say it that way. But I'm definitely going to, actually, I'm going to lead forward with the way I know now. And I just heard this quote from Alan Watts yesterday. It was on this channel I listen to that like remixes a whole bunch of like really cool inspirational stuff. Akira the Dawn is what it's called. I haven't ever like shared that, but I love that stuff. And there was something Alan Watts was talking about the wake of a boat. If you think about the wake of a boat, you can see it and it spreads as the boat continues on. But the wake does not drive the boat. It's behind us. It's behind the boat, and the boat continues. So it's knowing the past. Yeah, you could look at it. You could see how it's spreading out, or how whatever that past has done to you or for you. But it got you to that point in that boat, and you're still going forward. But that wake's definitely not the thing that's still, you're not driving backwards in that boat. You're not doing circles or donuts in that thing. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's, in what we're doing together within this inner circle and what all the other guys are leaning into. I know from my perspective, I had conversations with every single guy before we all said, all right, are we in? Are you in? Let's go. We're starting February 6th. And I remember some of the stories and the beliefs that guys had coming in, including, I don't know if I want to come into a space and talk about like real honest shit going on in my life. I think I might want to do some one-on-one stuff with somebody and really go deep. And I would say to them, yeah, you should do that and be in the community, because we can go farther together. When you're surrounded with others that are choosing to challenge beliefs and willing to lean in, and in some cases say, guys, I'm not checking all the boxes today. I don't care. I need some rest. And we're like, yes, man, right on. Yep. Take that stance and then get at it again tomorrow, because we know that these things will all benefit us. They'll all serve us. And, we didn't even get into some of the other things beyond just these granular ones. But like, one of the things I put on mine was do something romantic for your wife. When you and I first met, it was at an experience in LA. And we had to come up with a 3-word statement that was our contract, essentially. And mine was, I'm a vulnerable, honest, romantic man. And the vulnerability part was something that I leaned into over a good 8 years since then, in just the way that I, am transparent about what's going on in my life. And I've had many people come back to me and say that they just appreciate the fact that I'm willing to share that without fear of judgments. And let me be clear, the fear of judgment has always been there, but I just still leaned into it. And then the honesty was really just around, can I have conversations that are difficult with people and even with myself without stopping and saying, ooh, that sounds scary, but instead I'm going to do it anyways. The romantic one was one that I had really great intentions around for years and years, Joe. But it wasn't until recently, I'd say within the last year or so, that my wife and I committed to treating our relationship the same way, with the same level of commitment that we did our business, which was, let's go reassess where we're at on a quarterly basis. Let's commit to weekly meetings. Let's get a date night on the calendar and make it non-negotiable, not something that constantly gets bumped because we're busy with the kids or this work thing's pulling at us.
Yep.
And I put that on there just as a reminder to say, what can I do every single day? And it doesn't need to be roses at the, foot of the bed and planned vacations. It can be as simple as just an I love you on a text message. And that's huge. And my wife's feeling it too. And I see her showing up in a whole different way now too, not because I demanded it of her, but because I became the change that she was desiring me to become. And now she's matching that. And that's what scares people a lot of times too. I'll just say that straight up. A lot of times people fear change because they believe that everything that's around them might actually disappear. Family, friends, business partners, the way they make money, everything. And the answer to that is yes, it might. It might. Yeah. But are you willing to live your life fully, or do you want to live it safe so that you don't disrupt the things that you feel comfortable around right now? Because there's a whole world beyond that. And those that are willing to grow with you will come along for that journey. You just can't have to do it without expectation. Every time I put expectation on my wife to listen to an Alan Watts video, for example, dude, that backfired 100 times over.
Dude, I did that so many times where it's like, I'm gonna share everything I'm learning, and you're gonna follow along,
right?
and that never works.
Fixer in us,
dude. I'm just.
I see your problem. Just watch this video.
Oh my God, it doesn't, and that's where you mentioned that we're fearful, and even. Or in relationships, our partner can be very fearful of us changing, and that keeps us in our place very much so. And it's the fear of uncertainty, but essentially people love being certain in their lives, and the uncertainty, if you have direction of where you want to take yourself and what you truly believe you can become, whatever that is, and also how you can show up for your family. I mean, that is going to be a beautiful thing if you lean into it. But it's that whole, most of us we want that certainty in our life. And that certainty can be in a quote unquote shitty situation, even if that's just what we're used to, and it's not your fault. It's none of our fault. It's just how we work. It's like the whole safety. We all want to be safe. I had Britt on here. Oh my God, I'm blanking on her last name, but she completely just was saying everything is rooted in safety, us being safe, and our brains want that, or else it's a fight or flight kind of experience going on. So yeah. Out of uncertain is great. I love that stuff.
Totally. Quote just popped into my head. I just Googled it right now because I'm in front of the computer. But Marianne Williamson's quote, where she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. Oof. It's so true.
Yeah. I think that quote is written on the front of the journal that you guys sent me. Actually, that exact quote. So I'm like, wait, I've heard this one before.
Nice. I wasn't aware of that. Mike had those in his place. So he was the one that hand wrote all those and sent them out to the guys and sealed it too. Did you notice
I did.
The branding on that?
I saw the video. He sent it and everything. I'll show it here if you can make that out.
That is a true cow brand heated up with a torch.
It's a beautiful thing, man. Well, hey, Trev, before I know we're going a little over, but tell me about the retreat that's coming up in April and greater things that people can get involved in with what you and Mike are putting on.
Yeah. So April 24th to 28th of 2023, we are hosting 20 incredible guys that choose to show up fully and lean into an experience that will have many extreme aspects to it. It's called the Extremely Conscious Man Experience, Costa Rica. So there'll be extreme adventure. There'll be extreme cold, of course. There'll be extreme culinary experiences and food. There's going to be extreme conversations where we will dive deep and talk about vision and purpose and meaning and all connect on a much deeper level that you just can't do unless you're in person. And we knew that and experienced it last June when we hosted that live events. And then we committed to doing this one in April. And it's 5 days. When people join, everything's taken care of. So we pick you up from the airport and you're a part of the entire experience. We're going to be releasing some of the activities that we're going to be doing leading up to this retreat as well. Really, who it's for is somebody who's ready to stop having good intentions and to actually start creating real meaningful change in their life. And that doesn't mean change from a things are really bad and I need things to change. It just means that if you are somebody that's committed to growth and constantly seeking that next level of enlightenment, I guess you would say, then this is the kind of thing that really becomes that catalyst. That's, sword in the stand that says, all right, from this moment on, there are things that are just different in my life because of the connections that are made, the experiences that are had. And then obviously the work that continues on from that too, because it's not just about the experience. It's about everything that we do before, leading up to, and what we do beyond that as well, because we have to show up. We got to show up. And I'm grateful that you're a part of what we're doing in the inner circle right now. That is a piece of that that's leading up to it. And I haven't even discussed it if you're able to make it down there or not, but we'll talk about that.
We will. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if people can't make Costa Rica, we'll have another one in the fall as well. And we already talked about it briefly before, but the starting point is the intention. And that's why we created a space called the Better Man community, because everybody can relate to that phrase, better man. Do you want to be a better man? Is the intention there? Yes. Cool. I'm into the community that we built because you'll be surrounded by people that also have that great intention. And now the next part is, what are you going to do about it? And we're not going to shoot for the moon here. We're not going to create all of these crazy habits and things that we think overnight are just going to shift decades of pre-programming and conditioning. We're going to choose one small little thing at a time, and we're going to celebrate each other as we go. And there's so much power in just getting around your people. There's no other way to put it. But if you don't have those people in your life that lift you up and instead want to drink beers and talk about the Super Bowl and the commercials on the Super Bowl, you'd rather have a deeper conversation. That's why we created this. It was what we were seeking, and it was clearly seeking us because people are showing up all over the place, man. And in some cases they're not new people. You and I have known each other for almost over a decade. Yep. And here we are now at this totally new phase of our life and having a completely different conversation than we did last time.
Totally.
Because we're ready for it. And we're seeking it and we're desiring it.
Hey, I want to pause this really fast. As you're listening to Trevor and I's conversation, I want to shout out a little bit more details about this retreat that he's putting on along with his partner, Mike. I'm going to confirm that right here. I am going down there to Costa Rica with them. On this episode is recorded before I confirmed, but I am going to be there, and I'm shouting this out because I want you to be there as well. So if you are a man, because this is a men's retreat, there are some things coming up for the ladies later on. They have a whole vision for it. But if you're a man and you have some time, or you can make some time for yourself, because it's about you, at the end of April, they are putting on a full-on thing that's going to be just packed. 5 days, 4 nights, all-inclusive, tons of adventures, real conversations, all with the reason to elevate you. You should get all the information. Go check it out. Hit pause. Head over to extremelyconscious.com/experience and get the full details. If you have any questions, you can reach out. I'm sure you can reach out to Trevor and Mike. I have him coming up on the podcast pretty soon. But go get those details and join us in Costa Rica in April. Go to extremelyconscious.com/experience. And if this one doesn't work out for you, they are having one in Canada later in 2023. And I'm sure some more to follow as well. So go to extremelyconscious.com/experience. And now we'll get back to the episode. This is the time where I feel like a lot of folks are changing. It's in this kind of midlife transitionary phase where there's a lot of priorities are shifting and a lot of realizations from the past years and how we want to make the future years. And of course, being business owners, there's a lot of things that we put on our shoulders every single day, and however it looks like, and obviously families too. There's a lot of commitments. So the thing that I know I didn't do for myself is commit to myself fully every single day with intention, not just like, yeah, I was doing breath work for a long time. I've worked out for many years, but it was all like, beep, 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 beep. It was all over the place. It wasn't actually connected and integrated. And that's where I'm feeling the biggest growth. Just a month in on the inner circle with you and Mike. So retreat, definitely. Yeah. Well, let's chat about that. Because I want to make it down there. And if not that one, I know you have one in Canada later this year. And these retreats, I mean, like I've done some like this before, some other types of things. And there's no better way than to get together, even just for a handful of days. 5 days is just even better. And yeah, so definitely check that out. Go to the Better Man community on Facebook first to go get in there and just see what's happening. Start doing some of these micro habits, just pick one, celebrate it is key. It's very easy to tick a box and just do that every day, but actually celebrate it. Like I had BJ Fogg on this podcast a couple years back, created Tiny Habits. It's essentially like everybody's read Atomic Habits, the book, James Clear. Well, he learned that from BJ Fogg, but one just did a lot more marketing, and which is great. Not shaming anybody here, but BJ Fogg told us that. But the point is, like, his is all about celebrating and like these actions, pairing them up, and the key thing is celebrate it when you do it because you're locking it in on a deep level, and then it's expansion. You can keep putting things together in a direction that you want to go, and that's how I feel like these micro actions are doing. And also there's one more thing. I know the breath work that Mike does that is free. I think it's once a month, twice a month.
Yeah. We've been doing it once a month on the second Saturday. I think the next one's coming up here on the 11th of March. I want to say it's all linked up on our website, extremelyconscious.com, but it's the Better Human breathwork session. So we used to call it the Better Man breathwork session because it was just a nice fit for like, come to the breathwork session and then get into the Facebook community and keep going. Like all these things are connected, however you want to come into this space, we will open the door. You just got to show up. And then Mike brought it up about a month ago that we really do want to include the ladies, the women in our lives that are there standing behind us saying, please lean into this. They're celebrating us. They're wanting us to lean into this. And, even with regards to the retreat, they're telling their husbands and boyfriends and stuff. Both Mike and I have experienced that. Look at their husband and say, you should go to that. And then immediately they're met with, well, yeah, I don't know if I can do that though. What are we going to do that? Am I going to do that instead of us taking the kids to Disneyland? And the wives are looking at them and saying, yes, you should do that. Please show up as your fullest self. So these breathwork sessions are both kings and queens, we refer to it as. So women are welcome to come to those as well. It's a 45-minute call on Zoom. It's about a 20-minute breathwork session. So it's a little deeper than the just the 5-minute sit down, take 30 conscious breaths. So you go a little deeper. And yeah, it's always a magical experience. And especially when you can mix that feminine and masculine energy, they've been really uplifting for everybody that's there. And there's been some tears shed. There's been some major ahas. We've had people jump into our community with vigor after those saying, okay, all right, I found my tribe here. It's time to lean into this new way of being, which might be the opposite of how you've shown up and operated for the better part of your life. So yeah. What do you got to lose? If you're feeling anything like I did 2 years ago, which was a little frumpy, not super happy, great intentions to be a better version of myself, but no commitments, this could be your entry points, your invitation to say, maybe it's time. Yeah. What's at stake for you if you don't do it? And we all know, because I'm 47, like I said. I think you're in your 40s too as well.
I'm 38 next week.
Oh, you're 38. Okay. Yeah. Just a young spring chicken there.
Dude, I didn't even know you're 47. I mean, like, I was like, I always equated you around 8:30. So
yeah.
See, it's paying off.
Yeah.
Your youthfulness. It's true, man. So
I feel younger. I feel younger just in the last couple of years, even. I feel like I've shed years and I've started to think expansively about what this life can be like in my 50s and my 60s and my 70s even too. And I had to just show up and do something about it. Nobody else is going to hand it to me. And
it's never too late.
I did.
Yeah. It's never too late for anybody. Yeah. We all have excuses or reasons not to, but you know what? definitely now go check out the Better Man community on Facebook. And in the show notes or wherever you're listening to this podcast, I'll link a variety of resources we talked about. Because like the breath work, I know there's a place you can just sign up for free and you're always alerted of the next one. Yep. So do that. I usually go to those as long as, yes, I've been in the last two, I think.
Yeah,
and,
man.
It's so cool.
You're showing up. It's amazing.
Fun, man. You're making it easy. And
well,
I
love doing it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Is we wanted people that wanted to be here doing this with us, and not because we had all the answers either. I learned so much from you every single day with the shares that you're putting into the prompts, answers that we're doing on a daily basis. It's a co-creation. Yep. There's no gurus in this space. We're just all committed to this growth, and it looks different for everybody. And somebody takes a learning from one person where another person, it's in one ear and out the other. Like, yeah, it sounds good. Another person, it's like, ooh, unlock.
Yep.
That's
it.
The game.
Takes that one little thing.
Surround yourself with good people.
Yeah, brother. Oh, well, great stuff in here, man. Trev, for round 3, I think we crushed it. And you listening, thank you for sticking with us, and go pick something like in that Better Man community. Go download the doc, because it'll give you all the ideas that you probably have never thought of like, oh, that would be interesting to try out in my life and experiment. Try it for a month, just one thing, and see how it affects you, and celebrate it. I think that's the big thing, is celebrate what we have and what you're choosing to do that's uncomfortable, might be uncertain, but don't be scared. Don't be scared. There's great things to come. So. Trev, I appreciate
Absolutely.
you, my man. Any other? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's what I was just going to say, is there's a quote that we have on our website that just says, we've been waiting for you to show up. That's all it is. The person that listens to this that goes, I think maybe I should. Hey, man, we've just been waiting for you to show up. We're here. We're doing the work. We are leaning in, and we're creating some amazing things, because let's not kid ourselves on this too. We're not just talking about physical growth and relationship growth and spiritual growth. Our businesses are excelling because we've chosen to lean into this work too. So all of you high achieving entrepreneurs that want to know how to 10x your business, why don't you slow down a little bit? Come jump into the community, see what we're up to.
I would agree with that, man. Business is looking better, and I'm feeling better. And hey, can't lose there. We're feeling great. So, Trev, appreciate you, man. And again, check everything out in the show notes. Everything's going to be linked up for you to keep it easy, because we talked about a lot. And we'll do a round 4, I'm sure, Trev, pretty dang soon. So, appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right. That's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But, work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So, if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others the way that people find this show, and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, and I will see you next time.